Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name is Izzy Greenberg. I run the Middlesex Coalition for Children and one of the co-chairs of the Connecticut Early Childhood Alliance. These calls are being sponsored by my organization, the Middlesex Coalition for Children, by the Connecticut Early Childhood Alliance. We have Meryl Gay here from that organization, from Connecticut Association for Human Services, and we have Liz Frazier here, and by CSEA, SEIU, the Child Care Union, and we have Ava Bermuda Zimmerman here from that organization. Thank you also to Will DeLeese for doing interpretation for us this morning. Okay, so if you missed those language settings, I'll say them one more time just to be sure. You should see a globe at the bottom of your screen if you are on a computer. It says interpretation, you click that. Choose the language you prefer. I choose English. It'll then say English, you click it again, and you choose mute original audio. If you don't choose mute original audio, then you will hear the Spanish feed over your English feed, and that can be confusing. So I'm going to post those settings in the chat just so that you guys all have them. Okay, so today we have Senator Richard Blumenthal, who will be on with us today. He's joining at 9:30. So we have
9:15. 9:15.
Is the senator on?
Messed up my time this morning, so my apologies to everyone.
Here we are. The senator is now getting on.
Great.
Right, everyone. Okay, so let's see. Let's look in our panel here. Oh, good morning, Senator. Thank you so much for joining us. You are muted. And I want to be sure before we start that you have our settings correct. We do this in simultaneous Spanish and English, and you'll hear both if you don't do it right. So you have to make sure you click interpretation at the bottom of your screen and then choose English. Then you click it again and hit mute original audio. So are you hearing Spanish over?
No, I'm hearing just English.
Perfect. Okay. Well, welcome so much. My name is Izzy Greenberg, and I run the Middlesex Coalition for Children. I'm also the co-chair of the Connecticut Early Childhood Alliance. We also have Connecticut Association for Human Services and CSEA, SEIU co-sponsoring these calls. So we've got Liz Frazier, Meryl Gay, and Ava Bermuda Zimmerman here, and we all run these together. We're so grateful you were able to join us this morning to talk about childcare. Obviously so very important at this time and always. I'm actually just going to turn this over to Liz Frazier to give an introduction of you.
Good morning, Senator. It's so nice to have you with us. We're so appreciative of you being here with us this morning, but also all of your work throughout the years as Attorney General and as a Senator in really working for families and children and justice. So we're really very happy to have you here, and we feel that you are a true ally in our plight. We're also very encouraged that you signed as a co-sponsor to Rosa DeLaura's bill, the Child Care is Essential Act. Extremely important, and that's what we're here for this morning, to see what we can do, how we might to support your efforts in getting this bill passed, and we will do whatever we have to do. I'd also just like to say right now that I see our Commissioner Beth Bai has joined us. So good morning, Commissioner, and the Senator is here. What we're going to do this morning is, Izzy is a great facilitator. We're going to have some stories for you. We'll let you introduce yourself, and then we're going to have some provider stories for you, and then hopefully quite a bit of time for some from your comments and to answer some questions. So Izzy, would you, Senator, would you like to introduce yourself, and then Izzy will start introducing our panelists. Oh, you're muted somehow.
I would just Senator, double check your that you're on the English feed and that you've hit mute original audio.
I did hear him before, so
something may have changed.
How's that?
Yes.
We got you. Thank you.
I'm still hearing Spanish.
Okay, then click interpretation again and click mute original audio.
Okay.
Is that better?
I think so.
Okay, great.
Well, first of all, I'm delighted to be joining with Beth Bai, who is a former colleague, a great public servant, and a wonderful friend. And to all of you, friends and colleagues, I count you as really colleagues in this work on childcare. And I think we are beginning to see now in very real, stark terms how critical childcare is, because people are now realizing that our economy cannot reopen. Literally, people cannot go back to work. Schools cannot reopen. All of the normal economic activities that we associate with our great America cannot go forward without sufficient childcare. But it has to be more than just childcare in name. It has to be quality childcare. And I think that's one of the reasons why I have supported the Childcare is Essential Act. I've been a strong proponent and advocate, as you observed in your introduction, of quality childcare as Attorney General, as a member of the state legislature, and now as a U.S. Senator. But I think there is an opportunity on childcare, even in the HEROES Act, which has money for childcare, not as much as the $50 billion in the Childcare is Essential Act, but billions of dollars are in the HEROES Act. So first and foremost, I think we all need to mobilize every bit of support that we can for the HEROES Act. And that's important because Mitch McConnell is really the obstacle here to both the Childcare is Essential Act and to the HEROES Act. I think we need to put as much pressure as possible on my Republican colleagues. A number of them are up for re-election. I'm just being very blunt here, and because you asked the question, what can we do? And you have allies across the country, as well as in Connecticut, who can be a really formidable force. If people realize that schools are going to be reopening at best in a hybrid way, not everyone is going to school all the time in the regular classroom setting. So parents are going to have to juggle childcare with going to work, with picking their kids up from school, all the normal activities that already make childcare essential are going to make it just absolutely more so. So I'm hopeful that the reality of this situation will set in, the imperative of having childcare. And I think, for example, I'm going to be visiting a couple of childcare facilities this week. I'm trying to draw attention to it. There's so much competing for public attention, but the more we can raise visibility, the more we can put pressure on Republican colleagues, I think the stronger our position will be.
Great, thank you.
Much.
Thank you so much. And Commissioner Bai, would you like to jump in on this conversation before we go into the providers?
Sure, really quickly. Senator, I'm so grateful for your leadership and your ongoing leadership on issues around childcare. We've worked together on these issues literally for decades, going back to the early and mid 90s. I can't stress enough, Senator, the stresses and strains that programs are under in Connecticut and how important the funding is. I saw over the weekend something passed the House for infrastructure funding for childcare, $10 billion, and that's it really, it's all important. As you know, in Connecticut, we have a lot of struggles, but the funding, the amount of funding in order to support the survival of our centers really needs to be between $25 and $50 billion. We received a $3 billion initially, and just so you know what that translated in Connecticut, we're about to send out grants for about $6,000 per program, which is really helpful. But I was on the phone over the weekend with a provider, a director, and they're losing upwards of $10,000 a month and they've been losing $10,000 a month already for months. And so we've been able to patch things together, and we've directed some of the federal dollars that come to the state, both the CARES and then the Care for Kids dollars, their quality dollars that comes with that. So we're putting out everything we can. We're now up over about $110 million that we've sent out. And I will tell you, every program is still hanging on month to month. Those funds have been expended. So I can't stress enough that it's got to be a significant investment. I heard over the weekend we've lost 18 programs over the past month that have closed their doors permanently. And there are literally hundreds making decisions over the next 4 weeks about whether they'll ever be able to open again come September. So we're trying to get, we're really appreciative of the federal dollars, and we're trying to get those out the door. We are lucky in Connecticut. When I talk to my colleagues in Kentucky who have no state funding, we were able to send out about 80 million in state funding to keep programs whole through the end of June. But now that the end of the fiscal year has happened and we're into the new fiscal year, I can't stress enough how important it is that childcare has a significant investment. And I know you have that on your mind, but another $3 billion won't even get our providers whole for a month. Even it's based on the 25% of operational is sort of that we know that's going to be 6 to 12 months before providers have their full complement of children back and before these public health rules are relaxed, I'm sorry. So I so appreciate you here to hear the stories from providers directly about what they're up against. And you stated so eloquently how important this is for the economy to get going. So I'm grateful to have a moment to speak to you, and always grateful for your leadership.
Thank you, Beth.
Great. Thank you so much, Commissioner. The first speaker we're going to go to is Tennille Smalls, who is going to share stories of being a home-based provider for you.
Thank you so much, and good morning, Senator Blumenthal. As it was just introduced, my name is Tennille Smalls, and I am a licensed family in-home child care provider here in the city of New Haven. Senator Blumenthal, at the start of COVID-19, not only myself, but many other providers also were faced with the very tough decision to continue to open our personal doors to children whose parents are primarily healthcare and essential hospital workers. I personally had to send my teenage son, who's 15, to stay with a family member to prevent him from possible exposure of infection or outbreak within my home due to what we're facing regarding the pandemic. This was a very hard decision to make, but in order for me to continue to work and provide care for those that are in need, I made that decision. During that time, approximately 50% of my colleagues in the community made the decision to actually close their doors, while some have actually closed their doors involuntarily due to the exposure of testing positive to COVID-19 as a result of continuing to open their doors to essential hospital workers. Okay. Family child care providers, not only myself, but all of us, are faced with the fear, a huge fear, of losing our businesses while also risking our health and the health of our loved ones. We don't work in a facility or a center-based program where we can actually go into an office and then return back into our homes. This is our home. And we continue, many of us, aside from the 50%, which those numbers, according to what the commissioner mentioned earlier, those numbers may have risen in terms of those that have closed their doors. But many of us are still willing to remain on the front lines for the children and families that we compassionately serve every day. However, Senator Blumenthal, we need your support. We need massive action, and we need massive support to ensure our sustainability and our longevity. And in order for us to remain available to serve our community, our workers, and the children of our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Tennille. That was really beautifully said. Thank you. You know, I just want to say again, because both you and Commissioner Bai have stated it so powerfully, that this need is in Connecticut, but it's also nationwide. I suspect the stories I'm hearing from you this morning are duplicated all around the country. And the good news is that we have people like you who are willing to devote yourselves and your homes to this extraordinary public service. But we owe you better. We really owe you better for your sacrifice and service. So I hope that we can take these stories, and I hope that my colleagues will listen to them, because they're more persuasive than all the speeches that I could give on the floor of the Senate. So I thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you so much, Tennille, for sharing that story. I am going to next go to Julie Clark, who's going to give you the perspective of a private provider.
Hi, Senator. Thank you so much for being here and listening today. I've written my comments, so I hope you don't mind. I'll be reading some. But my name is Julie Clark, and this is my story, and I think I represent many child care providers who are here today. As a single mother with 2 small children, I started doing childcare in my home in 1987. I now own a childcare center in Woodbury that serves about 200 families, from infants to elementary school children who come before and after school. In all these years, through good economies and bad, I've remained open, and that is until this March. By the end of March, I had 7 children in attendance and 14 staff out of 33 who came to work because they needed their paychecks. I rely 100% on private tuition. The situation was completely unsustainable, so I closed and allowed my teachers to collect unemployment. I want to say a word about my staff and those in general who make it their life's work to care for and educate young children. You will not find a more dedicated and compassionate group of people. They work hard. Many of them work long hours. And even in a good economy, child care providers cannot afford to pay them what they really deserve. Parents struggle to pay what amounts to even $5 or $6 an hour for childcare. So as of today, I am still closed. My parents are still worried about sending their children back. My teachers are still nervous about coming back. Some of them have pre-existing conditions that would make contracting the virus more dangerous for them. Some of us, and I include myself, have elderly parents that we worry about. Most of the child care programs in the state of Connecticut are closed. Some of us are considering reopening, but have lost 4 months of revenue and are looking at higher expenses, lower enrollment, and a scarcity of PPE and essential cleaning supplies. Childcare in Connecticut and childcare in our country is an essential business. We are businesses. We are often seen as just a lovely group of people who love children, and we are also that. But we are business owners, and we must, especially now, have the support of the federal government in order to continue to exist. Childcare is the foundation of our economy. Without it, parents cannot work. With accessible, quality childcare, workers can go to their jobs confident that their children are well cared for. Our economy depends on a sustainable childcare industry, and that's not just now, but into the future as well. And before I end, I'd like to mention the Maasai people of Kenya, who use a greeting when they meet each other. And it isn't, "Hi, how are you?" What they say is, "And how are the children?" It's an indication of how much they value the children in their society. If the children are well, then the community is well. Please, Senator Blumenthal, convey these deep concerns to the Senate leadership and to your fellow senators. This is an issue that affects Democrats and Republicans. Our children and their well-being, as well as the industry that cares for them, should be a bipartisan concern. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie. Maybe I could just ask you, I don't mean to interrupt the flow of the conversation, ask you and Tennille, you mentioned a number of different areas of need from PPE to other kinds of assistance. What would you say in terms of priorities are the things that you need most?
For me, PPE is big, cleaning supplies are big, but also one of my biggest expenses is paying salaries. There are ratios that we have to abide by, and we need floaters for those teachers who have to leave the classroom or are out sick or have to have lunch or go to the bathroom. So my payroll is about $70,000 a month. The PPP loan, and I got one, will help, but you know, it will go like that. So if I'm going to employ the people who work for me, then I will need help paying them. That's one of the biggest.
So you received a PPP loan, but
did.
you closed and you put your employees went on unemployment insurance.
I just now received the PPP loan.
Okay.
I didn't get it originally.
Got it.
I just got it now, and it will help me somewhat for the next few months, but depending on how long it takes for parents to come back, because I depend, like I said, 100% on tuition payments.
And do you foresee parents coming back now, or are there indications that they will come back? What's your assessment?
It's half and half. I do have some parents who, even while we were closed, were writing to me and saying, please open, I need to go to work and I have no place to send my children. And then I have parents who write to me and say, you know, we love you, we're thinking of you, but we're just too nervous. We're going to stay home with our children. So I certainly will have some families returning, but I also will have many families who are going to wait and see what happens.
Tennille, what would you say are your biggest priorities?
I apologize. Yes, Senator Blumenthal, I would absolutely have to agree with a lot of the things that Julie mentioned. I think right now, one of our biggest issues is retaining PPE equipment. And my situation is a little unique because I actually decided to make a very brave and uncertain stance and take over a medium-sized center-based program that is about maybe 2 to 5 mile radius from where I currently am as an in-home program. And it's uncertain because of 2 reasons. The first reason is because we're not 100% certain as to how many children are going to be returning because of the uncertainties of whether or not COVID-19 is going to go through a second phase and things are going to get a little worse. So and then I also have parents that are calling me and saying that they need additional childcare. So with that being said, it's more, we need massive action in regards to finances. We need financial support so that we can remain open, whether parents are coming now or whether there's an influx later. So if we begin to see a decline based on whether or not the pandemic comes
Senator
back.
Blumenthal, I would just like to weigh in.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, hold on, Tennille, why don't you just finish up and then we'll go over to the commissioner.
Okay, well, actually, the commissioner probably would be able to express it way better than I can. So I just wanted to mention that in my personal opinion,
You go,
I believe
Tennille.
that,
My screen was frozen, so I thought you stopped. You go.
oh, okay. Well, to answer your question, Senator Blumenthal, in one
Tennille,
sentence.
you go ahead. I want to hear from you.
Okay. I just wanted to say that we absolutely need massive support financially, more so than anything. And to Commissioner Beth Bay's, to her, what word am I looking for now? I'm nervous. Oh my gosh. Basically, The OEC here in the state of Connecticut has been extremely supportive for us as family child care providers and providers throughout the state in regards to PPE equipment and helping us as much as they can. We have received a limited supply, but we have been receiving support, as well as support from other things such as the Connecticut Cares program. So we have received what has been available for us, but there has been a limited supply. So there's a need for both.
Okay.
Can I ask you one other question, Tennille? Have you applied for a paycheck protection program loan?
Yes, sir. I did. In fact, that's the only reason that my doors are actually still open, because I know I wouldn't even be on this call right now. And if I did not have an assistant, I actually have a worker with me who supports me every day. And at the beginning of the pandemic, we went down from the 6+3 that we are allotted as a family in-home program, which was 9. I had 9 children. I went down to 2, and both myself and my assistant did not get paid. And we kept our doors open for those 2 children until we were able to we were immediately approved for the PPP loan, where I was able to back pay my assistant and pay myself.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Senator, one quick thing, and Tennille, I'm sorry, because my computer froze, so I thought you had stopped speaking. You have the most to say here. What I wanted to just say to your question, Senator, is that in a survey of parents in Connecticut, less than half said they would feel comfortable sending their children back to childcare before January. So we have some data on this from Advanced CT. And this is why these funds are so critical, because we need to hold the programs up until the parents come back. And I'll stop there.
Thanks.
I am, in the interest of time, just going to keep us rolling here. We have a few more providers who we want to share with you. We also, Senator, have about 300 people from across the state here. And the folks who are our speakers today really do represent a good section of them. Obviously not every single voice, but you're hearing a broad variety of issues that folks are going through. So the next person we're going to call on is Mark Jaffe, who will represent publicly subsidized programs. Mark, are you ready to go?
I am here. Good morning. Can you hear me?
You can. Thank you.
Great. Well, good morning, Senator Blumenthal. It's good to see you again. And thank you. And thank you for your service. And I want to thank Commissioner Bai for demonstrating remarkable leadership for our programs. You know us well. We represent your hometowns of Stamford and Greenwich. And so you know the impact of some of the things that I'm going to share with you. We are, I believe, the second largest state-funded program in the state, center-based. And that means 943 children, 8 locations, 240 employees. So we're a large employer. And the work we do is 51 weeks a year, and it's 10 hours a day. And that means typically at least 1,100 parents are in the workforce, as well as some difficult to count who are off the books. So we are an economic engine in addition to the child care work that we're doing for our children. We are open. We opened 2 weeks ago all of our sites. So unlike when we were closed, we have multiple revenue streams, one of which are family fees. So the economics of CLC are very different from Tennille and many of the other programs. So we lost $175,000 a month just from family fees. Now we've reopened, and for a variety of reasons, we are now serving 380 children, which means as we go forward, we are losing likely over $110,000 a month. That's obviously not sustainable. We did receive PPP dollars, and some might consider it significant. But I will also tell you, and it's probably a conversation that I would like to follow up with your staff offline with our finance chair, the way the PPP dollars are being treated for nonprofits who get state and federal funding is extremely unfair, and at the end of the day will not be nearly as helpful as it is for private industry. And so essentially the PPP dollars, which would otherwise be 100% convertible into a grant for our program, will be taxed at 100%. We are being compelled by the OMB to use those dollars first. And so that is a huge problem for all of our programs, all nonprofits who get federal funding or state funding for that matter. So again, I'd like to follow up with you on that. So just to reinforce what everyone else has said, although we are a large player and we received those PPP dollars, we kept all of our employees employed while we were technically closed. We actually never closed because we kept one of our sites open to support the child care workers of Stanford Hospital. We did remote learning with all of our children, all 900 plus families. And now, even though we're supporting 380 on site, the remaining 560 we're continuing to support remotely. And again, I thank Commissioner Bai for recognizing that and financially supporting that. So the industry is fragile, certainly for many of the smaller providers. But I dare say when the rest of the economy is prepared to reopen, at least half of the child care industry will be wiped out. It won't be there to support the economy reopening. So it really is a grave matter. And so thank you for your support.
Well, thank you, Mark. And I would like to follow up offline on the issue, the tax issue and subsidy issue that you raised. I think that's very important.
Thank you so much, Mark. In the interest of time, I'm just going to keep going because I know we only have you for about 15 more minutes. We are next going to go to Georgia Goldburn, who's one of the leaders in our group and speaks, is going to, let's see, hold on. Here's Georgia. You ready? Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, Senator, and thank you so very much for participating in this group. I would just like to share that I'm coming to you wearing two hats. So I am the director of Hope for New Haven, which is a nonprofit organization in New Haven that manages the Hope Child Development Center. So I have a medium-sized childcare center operating in New Haven. But I'm here sitting in my circle hat, and about 4 or 5 years ago, we established Circle as a way to really tackle the racial inequity and the racial, all of the issues that disproportionately impact children and families of color in the child care realm. Tennille referred to the fact that she received PPP funds right away, and we were instrumental in helping her to secure those funding. And I share that because this weekend I found a link to the PPP loans for not just the folks who received the finances for $150,000 and above, but for those who received loans for $150,000 and below. And in Connecticut, our industry probably represent most of the folks who would fall in the 0 to 150 range. And there were only 478 providers that receive funding through the PPP process. That's a significant amount of providers who did not receive funding. And we know that a majority of the funding we're not going to providers of color, businesses of color, because those loans favored folks who are mostly banked and who are also have established relationship with the banks in the community. And so we also know that the majority of children of color are in centers where there are providers of color. And that is just a breakdown of how children and families choose where to go. They choose the centers that are in their community, and providers of color are in communities of color. And so from my lens, from a circle lens, I am thinking that if the majority of providers of color did not receive even any type of gap funding to keep them open, then a large portion of the numbers of providers that are going to shut down, this 50% that we are anticipating, are going to be providers of color. And so then COVID will have this very perverse impact on the community. Not only is it exposing the health disparities, but as a result of those health disparities and a result of those health impacts, then it's going to have another perverse impact in that majority of providers and children and families of color are going to lose childcare as a result. The big conversation right now is about Black Lives Mattering. And for me, Black lives cannot matter when we are facing police officers. It has to matter before children get to a place that they're coming in the path of police officers. Early childhood education, we know from the research, it will be instrumental in deconstructing and derailing children or children of color and from this school to prison pipeline. And so if we are not taking a stand, not just to basically secure the economic engine to preserve early childhood education, to ensure that all children have high quality childcare, we are not going to derail that track that children of color will find themselves on, because the system of racism that exists, that continues to disenfranchise them in all aspects of their lives, will go unchecked. And so this can be this $50 billion, and I'm not asking for 25, we need $50 billion, because we are not looking at a short-term fix, we are not looking for an interim fix. This system is functioning by design. When President Nixon ended or killed the possibility of us having universal child care in 1971, it was by design. And so we now, because it's by design, that means that we can fundamentally change and recreate the whole system. And so this is an opportunity, Senator Blumenthal, and I know that you have always been an advocate for children and families and for children and families of color. So this is an opportunity that I really want us to take advantage of. COVID, yes, has this perverse impact on communities of color, but it also presents an incredible opportunity for us to redesign our system once and for all, to fix all of those issues that we keep, kind of fixing around the edges and taking Band-Aids and applying Band-Aids. And we know fundamentally that early childhood education is a critical area that can help to permanently just derail the school to prison pipeline. And with that, I would just like to thank you for listening.
Georgia, that was amazing. I hope there is a recording of this conversation. I don't know, Izzy, how I would get it, but that was just so powerful. And, I've been saying at all the rallies and demonstrations that I've attended, and I've been to now, I think 17 of them, we need to broaden the lens from law enforcement to see racism in housing, with redlining, in education, with quality of schools depending on a child's zip code, to healthcare. We've seen the disproportionate impact of this pandemic on communities of color. And as you've just put it so well, on childcare. So I would really like to take that theme and broaden it. And maybe we can talk offline as well, because that was so powerfully articulated. Thank you very much, Georgia.
Thank you, and you're free to steal it, Senator.
I'd rather it come from you or us together. So
I am available, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Georgia. We are going to move on now to Queen Freelove, who is going to kind of give a summary for us, and then we'll have Meryl Gay from the Early Childhood Alliance. Go ahead, Queen.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Good morning, Senator, and everyone on the call. I just like to thank you for being on this call this morning, but I would also like to say that thank you for your leadership. However, we need you and like-minded senators to not forget childcare, to make sure that childcare is supported. We need funding, not just a little funding, because a little funding helps. And the funding we are getting, like Georgia said, is a Band-Aid. We need a better wrap than that. We need something that is sustainable, that can sustain the pain that we're going through, because a Band-Aid is just not going to get it. We need to keep our doors open. However, keeping our doors open, the funding keeps us employed, but it keeps the workers working, it keeps the families safe, and most importantly, it keeps the children safe. Because without funding, we are cutting corners. With this pandemic, we cannot afford to cut corners, or someone can get sick, doors will be closed. Funding is very important. It is essential to keeping our home clean, safe, and food on our
hold on.
Children and families. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen.
Thank you.
And of course, I'm Queen Freelove. I am the president of the Child Care Providers of the state of Connecticut. And I thank you again, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Queen. Ava, I'm going to actually have you sneak in before Meryl. Are you ready?
Yeah, thank you. Hello, Senator. How are you?
Hi.
So I just wanted to thank you, Queen. She's our SEIU Child Care President. Thank you so much for the support that you do as a leader. I'm just a little concerned about the undocumented providers, and too often here in the state of Connecticut, they're forgotten. In childcare, because we are a safe harbor state, we have the ability to have childcare providers who are undocumented, who participate in Care for Kids programs and are able to create a childcare home that's safe and welcoming for children. But unfortunately, during this crisis, they haven't qualified for PPP, they haven't qualified for the PUA, they haven't qualified for the other grants and services that the federal government has provided because of their current status, and using an EIN number isn't sufficient to maintain that financial funding and funnel it to them. So please keep that in mind. We have on this call right now some of those undocumented providers. They did not want to be named, but they are still here. So just don't forget about them. Over 30% of the child care workforce throughout the state of Connecticut are people who identify and are connected through another culture, another language, who might not speak only English. So this is a very big universe that we can't just ignore. Thank you.
That is a really important point. Thank you for making it and reminding us again about how much people who may be undocumented contribute to our society and our nation. You know, the whole immigration scandal in this country, this administration's cruel, hateful, literally barbaric treatment of undocumented people is an absolute disgrace for our nation. And Eva, you just pointed out a really critical area where they give back, they give to this nation, they contribute so much, and they're so important to our children and the strength of our society. So thanks for reminding us.
Thank you. We're going to go to Meryl Gay now for sort of some wrap-up summary information. Meryl?
Sure. Thank you, Senator, for listening to all the stories today. I think what you see is that the child care industry is a very diverse industry. We go from tiny home family child care providers up to large centers. There are some that have subsidies, some that are completely funded through parent tuition. And they all face challenges right now. particularly as parents have lost employment and parents are nervous about sending kids back to care. So we had 70% of our center-based programs closed in March, and now we're back at about half of them open, but they are operating under public health guidelines that say that they can only have 14 preschoolers in a classroom instead of 20, which means that they are losing money being open. And then we also, on top of that, have lots of parents who are out of work and therefore don't need childcare and don't have the money to pay for childcare. So that has further depressed attendance and revenues for programs. So we're really trying to make sure that we have childcare still in existence when the economy comes back. Because if a YWCA or a CLC goes under during this time, then you have a large hole in the child care system. Any one of those providers, for-profit or nonprofit, that closes down, they don't just reopen. I mean, you heard Julie talk about starting out as a family child care provider and growing into a program that serves 200 kids. That's really a huge issue. There have been various providers typing things into the chat and the question and answer. The Y in Greenwich has been losing $150,000 a month in parent fees because parents aren't attending. Lots of small programs are struggling because they're losing money every month that they're open. So it is really essential that we get a substantial investment of federal funds. And we really hope that you can go and talk to Senator Schumer about this being one of the top priorities for the Senate Democrats. Otherwise, we're going to have just a lot of empty former child care centers throughout the country.
Thank you, Merrill.
Thank you, Merrill.
I can promise you I will talk to Senator Schumer. I will also talk to some of my Republican colleagues, perhaps some of the more moderate ones who will be willing to listen to me. But I think this message is so powerfully important. I was struck by the statistic that Beth Bai gave about how many parents are going to be unwilling to have their kids go back before January, to go back to childcare, which I think can be changed if we have the PPE, if we have the financial viability, the staff, all of the factors that you just mentioned that will keep the facilities open. And you're right, the key word that you used is diverse. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of issue, but I've been working with Senator Warren, obviously Rosa DeLauro on the House side, but Senator Warren and I and some of the others who've written already to Senator Schumer and to the leadership, Senator McConnell. But I think that's a really powerful point, and I can tell you for sure I will continue the advocacy.
Thank you.
Izzy, before we just say goodbye, if I could just say a few more words very, very briefly. I think one of the points that was made that we don't want to get lost was that childcare was broken. The system was broken. Our infrastructure was broken well before COVID began. The $50 billion that is desperately needed, and Georgia is right, it's $50 billion, not 25 and not 7. It's that much money, and that's not forever. That's to help just sustain these centers for 6 to 7 months. That's it. We need a new system of childcare. We need a universal system that helps parents get back to work, not only work, but get back to school so they can retrain, so that folks that have not had enough education or training can get that education and training and know they have childcare. It is broken. And I think that's what I would like to leave you with. One of our folks on the phone, we have about 300 on the phone right now. Many more will listen to the recording. One of our folks, they're from Kayak. They have sent a letter to your office with some links to something called No Small Matter. It talks about the childcare crisis in the country, and I'm hoping that one of your staff might take a look. It's very short. It's not very. It's not terribly long. It's excellent, and it gives an overview. So, thank you all so very much for being here.
Let me just say before we close, Liz. First of all, I'm really grateful to you and Izzy, to Mark, Georgia, Eva, Julie, to Neil, everyone who has participated, especially to Commissioner Bai. Beth Bai has been such a leader in this area. But I want to continue this conversation. I will look at that Kayak recording, but I'd very much like to come back in the next few weeks, report back to you, because I'm going to make this one of my priorities. It has been for many years. Beth talked about decades. I'm a little bit intimidated to talk about decades, but it is a real passion of mine. As Mark knows, he and I have been working together on this issue for quite a while. Let me give every one of you, and I recognize there are a lot of people on this call, but I'm going to give every one of you my cell phone, 202-641-0532. I'll repeat that, 202-641-0532. I'm glad Izzy is sharing it with you very efficiently. And, you know, I've given my cell phone to a lot of small businesses, to nonprofits, to domestic violence advocates. I've been so impressed and inspired with the messages I've received, the phone calls, the texts. It has been a real learning vehicle for me. So I'm very serious when I give you my cell phone, that if you have perspectives, or maybe I can visit some of your facilities. I have a visit lined up, I can't remember exactly where it is, for later this week, to at least one of the childcare facilities in the state. But as you point out, it's a diverse group. So this is going to be a series of visits, and I hope to highlight and raise the profile of this issue, because America needs to understand, they really need to understand the crisis that we are facing. As you said, Liz, the childcare infrastructure was in crisis before COVID, and now it's simply aggravated. And as Eva has said so well, you know, our undocumented community are very much involved in this issue. So it really cuts across to retraining, to putting people back to work, to schools, to our immigrant community. Very, very important. And I think it is a teaching moment for our nation about the importance of childcare. So I really thank everybody, all 300, if they're 300, or whatever the number, all of you for being on this call. If we were in a different moment and a different setting, I would want to hug you for the great work that you're doing. It may not be for a while that we can do that, but please know that my heart is with you, and I really do thank you from my heart to every one of you.
Thank you so much, Senator. And, you know, I just want to repeat what Georgia said, which was this system was intentionally designed, and we have an opportunity here to redesign. And we're really, really excited for that opportunity. Obviously, we have a lot of people here who want to hear from you, want to support you. So anything our community also can do to support you in doing the important work of supporting children and families, you know, we'd love to have you back, absolutely. And we're really grateful for everything you've been able to do.
Thank you so much. Take care, everyone, and be safe.
Thank you as well.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Senator.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, and Senator, we will pass all the questions and comments on to you and your staff, by the way. We've got a lot of them, and I will pass those all on electronically to you after this.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
if everyone else could stay on the line, we just have some advocacy issues to talk about now. So thank you so much, Senator Blumenthal.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, and so yeah, if everyone has, if folks here have other stories or comments that they would like to share with the senator, please place them in the Q&A, not the chat. I will take everything in the Q&A and pass it along to the senator's staff after this conversation, so he's able to hear from more of you. I know I wasn't able to call on some folks who had comments they wanted to share, but the stories that we were able to hear as a result were really powerful and important. So thank you everyone for being here today and for sharing your important ideas. Liz, do you want to talk next about some of the advocacy stuff we need to?
Yeah, and Merrill, maybe Merrill can chime in. He has a better memory sometimes than I do.
Okay, Merrill, you want to go next?
So this week is seen as a really key week in moving this agenda. The Senate is due back on the 20th. So we are trying to get as much attention to childcare over this coming week as we possibly can. And that means that we all need to think about how do we get the word out on social media, through the conventional media, etc. So we are looking at the possibility of doing a press conference on Thursday. It's a good time to do letters to the editor, emails to members of Congress, and social media posts to try and spread the word that this is a key issue that needs to be addressed in the next COVID relief package that Congress is working on.
Merrill, can I share this toolkit?
Yeah, actually, I was just about to do it, but if you go right ahead.
Got it, thanks. Oh, you did it too.
Yep, okay. So that is a link to a Google Drive that will take you to some sample emails, letters to the editor type things, social media posts. And obviously it's better if you can rewrite it in your own words, put in your own particular details, but we really need to get as many people as possible contacting members of Congress. If you have friends or relatives in other states that have Republican senators, I think Senator Blumenthal summed it up pretty clearly that it is Senator McConnell, the Republican leader in the Senate, who is the person holding things up. Now, we've been on calls with advocates from Kentucky, his district, and they have been talking to him as well. They made it sound like maybe they were getting a little traction, but the more that we can have him hearing from members of Congress in states that have candidates up for re-election, you know people in Maine, you know people in Arizona, you know people in Colorado, having them contact their Republican senators about the importance of childcare is really important. The more pressure we can put on those folks who are in challenging races, those are the people that Senator McConnell is listening to.
Just a word about the toolkit. It looks like it's from Ohio, because it is. These people did a great job getting messages together. You have to sort of go through it to find all of the tweets, but there's ways. There are tweets, there are blogs, there are Facebook posts that you can do with your own pictures. Even though it says Ohio, click on some of those links in there and you're going to find social media types of tweets. And they have given permission for anyone to change. You can use the dialogue verbatim, just change it to Connecticut, that's all, and add whatever you want. So don't be fooled if it says Ohio. We're all trying to work with each other and offer support, and this is how Ohio is doing this. So,
all right, thank you, Liz. Okay, so Ava, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I do, just in quick updates. We were working really hard on scheduling for this week a diversity conversation. And unfortunately, the facilitator who has been doing the diversity conversations with ACEs, the trauma group here in the state of Connecticut, had a very large fire in her housing complex. So our prayers go out to her. She's not available right now. That does not keep it off the table for the future, but we will keep you posted.
Oh.
Yep. Thank you so much for that update. Okay, so everyone, I just want to thank you all for being here. You know, the power of this group is in our numbers and in our brains and our bodies and our smarts and the way that we use our collective voice. And you guys have been amazing. Our collective voice just gets stronger and stronger. And so I am really grateful to all of you for showing up every week and for doing the work in between of caring for children and caring for yourselves and caring for this community and advocating. And it's not easy. And it's constant and it's consistent, but that's what's making it so great. So I just want to thank all of you. I don't want to lose the fact that, you know, it's great to have our elected leaders on, and they're so important, but the real power of our group and of our country really is in all of you and in all of the people who are making their voices heard. So, so don't stop doing that. That's very important.
I'm going to also put in for anyone, just before you end this, the link to the listserv, because as Meryl was saying, there will be a lot of advocacy asks for this week. And if there's a press conference, we're going to want a large turnout as well. So I'm going to put all of that, I'm going to put the listserv, how to get onto it in the messages in the chat in just a moment. So just stay on the line until I can go get that, and while Izzy's wrapping up. And I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you. And also, you know, there's a lot of folks who are sharing information in Spanish. Thank you. I know that, you know, it's not always easy to be in a multilingual environment, and to all of you for, you know, just dealing with the tech issues, for making it work. We're able to have such a more powerful group because we love each other in that way. So I just want to thank you all for doing that as well. And to everybody who's giving comments in Spanish, those will also be passed on, of course. And so just one final reminder that if you want any comments passed on to the senator, please put them in the Q&A before you log off.
Izzy, it's Maggie.
Hi, Maggie.
Hi, I just wanted to end too, just enjoying the OEC. We really thank you. First of all, we thank you, all of the organizations that have put these webinars together. But I want to thank the community. You are so articulate. Your advocacy is supreme. And thank you. And just we fully support you and your efforts.
Thank you so much. And to the OEC for always, you know, being here with us. We're grateful that Commissioner Bai was able to join us. And I know your job is really hard too. And you've been consistent and here with us as well. So we are really grateful for that, even when we're giving you a hard time.
Don't do that.
We're all in this together.
We're all one big family.
So
yeah.
Speaking of giving state agencies a hard time, is there any information on DCF? I don't know if Georgia's still with us, might be able, I know she was trying to set up a follow-up, yet another follow-up with DCF about.
I know that Beth, Commissioner Bai, did meet with DCF last week, and they did make some progress.
Okay.
Maggie, is there any way, this is Georgia, is there any way to get some update on that progress?
I don't know how substantial it'll be, but yes, I can get you an update.
Okay, so what we're trying to do is I put an invitation out to DCF to join us either this Wednesday or next Monday. They did indicate that they were interested in joining us. We have two asks for them, and that is that they adopt either the Connecticut CARES or the Care for Kids program as their payment mechanism, as well as to engage in ongoing communication with us. One of the things I have to say that we're so appreciative of, and Maggie, you really do lead the way in this, is the way that we are connected with the Office of Early Childhood Education. We feel very much like you are a partner with us. You come to our meetings, and you're not just there when there's a crisis or a problem. And so because we are engaged in that ongoing conversation, we have input at the various level of decision making, and just having you there and having the commissioner available to us to respond to the needs is so critical. DCF is as much a part of our system, and we feel very much that they should have the same presence. And so to the extent, Maggie, that you can lend your voice to the effort of them being a consistent presence, not just their designee, but rather the commissioner as well, that is the ask that we have. Because I think we don't want to continue to have this conversation about invoices. We want to have a conversation about how do we fix the system. We're now talking about systems. How do we fix the system to make it work for everybody? And we're just going to continue to talk about invoices until we have a different payment system. So those are the two things that we talked to them about coming to discuss, and our two asked for them. So we're waiting to hear back which day they'll be available.
Okay, thank you very much. And I will get back to you with a precise update.
Thank you, Maggie.
Okay. Is there anyone else who has anything to add real quick? Any of the panelists before we wrap up?
I would like to just say, if you have not had a chance to see the No Small Matters documentary, Kayak is hosting that in a Zoom format. It is really worth watching. And Katie has been posting those in the links to the various sessions. There's one in July 21st and one in August 13th, and another August 22nd. They're all in the chat. If you click those little 3 dots on the side of the chat, you can save the chat onto your computer, and then you've got all of those links so that you could register for that. It's well worth the watch.
Thank you so much. And thank you to them for making that available to everyone. Okay, well, we did it today. Wednesday, we will be sending out the information, hopefully today, but maybe tomorrow, about what's happening on Wednesday. Remember, Mondays are now the big day that we want everyone to join, absolutely. And Wednesdays are going to be focused more on conversation and advocacy. Obviously, we'd love to have all of you there as well, but Mondays are the big information sharing days. Wednesdays are more conversational. So
if we can get it together in time, a press conference on Thursday, which is sort of out of the schedule, we apologize, but that is the National Day of Action for Childcare, and we wanted to come out with a bang. So we'll put it all in the listserv.
Great. Thank you again. And thank you all of you. We will leave this open just for about 5 minutes, so you have time to save your chat. Go down to the bottom of your chat box, hit the 3 dots and hit Save Chat, and that should download it for you. Again, don't forget to put any questions and comments in the Q&A before you log off. That will be sent to Senator Blumenthal's office. Thank you again, everyone, and have a great afternoon.